Name of the guy is Arnold Harris.
I only knew him as Ace. Why are you talking to me? I don't know why you're talking to me either. I only knew him as Ace.
He's Arnold Harris. He's 25 years old.
I gotta try to explain to you. I have a guy on my right. Well, bend down if you want. Get off my ass, all right?
And
on television, you
we
said
only
that?
knew him.
I hope not.
We only knew him as Capt.
Yeah, that goes way back. Oh, he's coming back?
Danny got him on.
I don't know anything yet. I just got here.
Could I borrow your piece of paper for a minute?
You want him to hold it up?
It's just for the guys who want to write the name down. Everybody's got Arnold Harris, right?
Yeah.
No, this is not for what he called yet. This is not a roll yet. Is that what you say?
It's not a roll. Frankie, you're getting big. This is terrific, Frank.
But Arnold Harris, male, 25, emotionally disturbed person. He's common law with Elaine Jones. Who's in my pocket?
You were saying?
Hold on. Okay. So just make a little bit of room over here. There's going to be for the emergency service guys going to come right here, okay? What'd you say, Elaine Jones? Elaine Jones.
No, you're not, baby. You know what's going on.
Chris Bauer.
What's your first name? Chris Brower. Chris Brower and Tom. Your first name?
Jerry. When are you going to do? How do you spell Brower? This way. Jerry.
All right. Chris Brower.
Everybody's going to have to step back to
Jerry.
Can everybody just take a step back?
Get your hand off my show.
All right, take it easy.
Put your back, put your head back in the camera.
Chris is very good. You want to do the cutaways first, Frank?
Jerry, what's your last name? O'Connor.
Jerry O'Connor and Chris Brower of Emergency 2.
Spell your last name, please.
Capt Frank Bolz, who is the senior negotiator of the hostage negotiating team. Captain, can you start off by giving us a rundown of basically what happened?
Basically, early this morning, sometime around 8:30.
Wait.
We're going to start all over again. Are you ready? Okay now? Okay?
Okay. Start again.
Appreciate it.
This morning at about 8:30, Arnold Harris, who is a man who has a emotional problem, apparently he was holding his child through a common law marriage, Arnold Jones, in the apartment here at 110th Street. Apparently, he's a little bit distraught. He couldn't get a job, and he was unsatisfied, he indicated, with the mental health care treatment that he was receiving. At least he perceived it to be not satisfactory to him. And he apparently felt frustrated, and he took this child out of an act of frustration, and I imagine he just needed the attention, for people to just pay attention to him, because he had reached the end of his rope. And the emergency service people responded. First the regular patrol forces, and then the emergency service people responded, and Chris Bauer here was talking when I got to the scene. Perhaps Chris can go bring you up to that point till I came.
What were you talking about? What did he say?
Well, he was going on about he had faith in God, telling sinners to repent. There wasn't too much conversation going on between us. He was doing all the talking.
What did you see when you got up there?
There was really nothing to see. The door was locked. All we could see was through the keyhole.
Chris, what did you do then? How did you finally get him out?
Well, we just tried to talk to him, and when Captain Bolz got on the scene, he was able to engage in a little conversation, and he finally opened the door.
How do you know the baby was threatened?
Well, the mother said that he had grabbed a knife and the baby and taken the baby into the room.
Did you ever see
Did he give any reason to the mother for taking the reason? Did she tell you taking the kid?
Did
you ever see a weapon, sir?
Yeah, we found the knife.
What did you say to get him to give up the baby?
Basically, what we wanted to do is let him know that we were all out there to help him and not to harm him. We realized he had a problem, and our role is to try to help him surmount that problem. And in so doing, by helping the man who is holding the hostage, we also help the hostage. We put most of our attention, we put all of our attention actually on the hostage taker, so that if we can get him over that crisis that he is in at that particular point in time, we then will also help the hostage. He was very, very emotional. He was saying phrases about God and about the Bible, as Chris indicated. And Officer O'Connor and Chris held that door. They had good containment at the door. They engaged him in conversation, and then Officer Bauer introduced me in as the negotiator, and then I just tried to get him to open the door, telling him that we were there to help him, not to hurt him. And after about 15 minutes or so, he came to the door, opened the door, we released the line, and then we took him by the hands, and we took him out and made sure that he was safe. Then we took the baby out. The baby had a few scratches, or appeared to be scratches, on the right side, and the baby was taken to the hospital for a thorough examination.
Could those scratches have been caused by the knife that he was holding?
I don't know. That would have to be, a medical person would have to say that, but there were scratches and there were blood. There was no mention of that. There was very little conversation other than rhetoric about the Bible. He was quite far out.
Where was he taken now?
I believe he was taken to St. Luke's Hospital, and he had formerly been in the Marine Corps, and so I don't know what his status would be in terms of a veteran status.
Captain Bolz, any particular point at which you were able to get him to open that door?
Well, it was an ongoing thing. It was a continuation of the stage that was set by the emergency service guys, and they set a good even pace, and that we were just able to continue a good flow because we worked together a long time, and we have a good interaction between the negotiating team and the emergency service.
Is he going to be charged?
The baby is about 10 months old. Female? Male. It was Arnold Jones.
Is the man going to be charged with anything?
I don't know at this time. He's going to go for a medical evaluation, and they'll ascertain after that evaluation whether or not any charges will be placed.
You were holding the baby when you got into that apartment. Could you tell us where the baby was?
The baby was lying on the bed. It was very, very quiet. I was very concerned because it wasn't crying anymore. It had been crying earlier, but then I saw movement, and then when I picked the baby up, apparently the baby had fallen asleep. And so I felt very good when he started to move.
How long was the whole...
I don't know. I understand he was. I don't know for sure.
I understand he went to St. Luke's yesterday, and he wasn't admitted.
I don't know about that because when I got to the scene, I was just trying to gather information. That is something you may be able to ascertain further.
What about the wife, the common law wife? Where was she all the time?
She was in the adjacent room giving intelligence, giving information to our other negotiators and the other police officers that we could build up.
Had he pushed her out of the room when he took the baby?
I don't know that. We don't know that.
Frank, how do you typify this? Is this a cry for attention? Is that what these people usually want?
Basically, this is a person that's an inadequate, what we call an inadequate personality, one who's frustrated and who cannot accomplish his goals in any other way, and he feels that he's got to do something that will get attention for him, and this is the kind of action they engage in. It's difficult to say ignore it, because you can't ignore it, because the life of that child is at hand, and we have to be very concerned about it. So we have to handle each of these jobs as a very, very important thing.
If he didn't get the attention, would the life actually be endangered? Or?
It could very well be. He could very well escalate to a point where you would have to cover it, and that might mean he might go into a suicidal situation, or he might become homicidal. And suicide and homicide are just different sides of the same coin.
How many different police officers were here?
I don't know. Well, we had patrol officers, you had regular detectives, you had emergency service people, you had street crime, and you had the hostage negotiators.
How long did the whole thing last?
I would tell you, what time is it now? We don't look at the clock when you do it. I would say about an hour and a half.
You held the baby an hour and a half?
Well, it was an hour and a half that we were here. How much time before that, we're not exactly certain.
What is your name and title?
Captain Frank Bolz. I'm the chief hostage negotiator.
And fire commissioner.
B-O-L-Z. Thank you.
Captain, how many rooms in there then?
I was in the front bedroom. How many rooms were there?
Three bedrooms. Three bedrooms?
It's a big
And the mother was in an adjacent.
Frank,
How
thank
about
you.
knife was?
Listen, tell
I'll tell my kid hello for you.
Tell the kid he's supposed to see us at noon time.
Noon? For an hour and a half, Arnold Harris held police at bay. He was up in that apartment, holding a knife to a young child, 10-month-old Arnold Jones, the little boy of his common-law wife.
Okay. Stand by. You ready? Speed. Keep your head up.
25-year-old Arnold Harris held police at bay for more than an hour and a half in that apartment. He was holding a knife to 10-month-old Arnold Jones, the son of his common-law wife, Elaine Jones. Police negotiated with him through the door, trying to talk him out. He claimed that he was not getting enough mental help, that he was troubled and not getting enough attention. And finally, Captain Bolz, Captain Frank Bolz, the chief of the hostage negotiating squad, talked him out, and he came out calmly. Police took him to St. Luke's Hospital, where presumably he will receive treatment. Yeah. The chief of the negotiating squad, Captain Frank Bolz, who talked this man out, says often this kind of personality wants attention, and if they don't get it, they run the risk of either turning in... Take it again. Take two. Close. Captain Frank Bolz, the head of the negotiating squad, who talked this man out, says usually this type of personality wants attention, and if he doesn't get it, there's two sides of a coin. On one side, the possibility of murder. On the other side, suicide. In this case, there was a happier ending. Steve Powers, Channel 5 News at West 110th Street. Take it again. Take three. Captain Frank Bolz, the head of the negotiating squad, who talked this man out, says this type of personality usually just wants attention to his plight. And he says in this kind of a case, there are two sides to the coin. On one side, the possibility of a killing. On the other side, suicide. In this event, there was no damage to anyone. Steve Powers, Channel 5 News on 110th Street.
Stand by.
In this case, no one was hurt, but the head of the negotiating squad, Captain Frank Bolz, said that oftentimes two things can happen, and they're both sides of the same coin. Either this kind of personality turns ugly and there could be a murder, and perhaps he turns his anger to himself, in which case there's a suicide. As I said, in this event, neither occurred. There was a happy ending. Steve Powers, Channel 5 News on West 110th Street. And one more.
Are you ready?
Yeah.
Stand by. Try to keep your head up. Yeah, like that.
In this case, no one was seriously hurt, but the head of the negotiating squad, Captain Frank Bolz, says that oftentimes what can happen is the personality involved in the call for attention can... Okay. In this case, no one was seriously hurt, but the head of the negotiating squad, Captain Frank Bolz, says other times, if a personality like this is involved, two things might happen. One, the possibility of a killing. The other, the possibility of a suicide. He says they're both two different sides of the same coin. Steve Powers, Channel 5 News on West 110th Street.
Take a step to your right. Stand by. Speed.
In this case, no one...
Don't look at us, okay? Thank you.
In this case, no one was seriously hurt. But in cases like it, the possibility exists. In the old days, before they had negotiating squads, often these cases were settled with police storming an apartment in order to avoid any injury to anyone. Now the negotiating squad moves in, and Captain Frank Bolz, the head of that